See students, our today's topic is related to mechanism of respiration. See, in our last lecture, we have studied about two steps, breathing and external respiration. Today we will see what is internal respiration. Before moving to internal respiration, we will revise what is breathing and what is external respiration. Let's start with breathing. What is breathing? In breathing, what happens? Whatever oxygen, or you can say gases, are available in our atmosphere, when you inhale, that gases enter into your lungs. Okay, so that gas, out of that gas you need oxygen, so you capture oxygen through inhalation and you release carbon dioxide through exhalation. So it is all about atmosphere and your body. So oxygen enters into your body and carbon dioxide leaves your body through breathing. Once that oxygen is entered into your body, that oxygen should move from the lungs. It will enter into, obviously it will enter into respiratory system. So through the respiratory system, it will accumulate in the alveoli. What is alveoli? Alveoli are nothing but a small pouch-like structure, balloon-like structures present in the lungs. Okay, the smallest unit of lungs you can say. So they will accumulate in the lungs, and this oxygen should move from the lungs to the bloodstream so that our body can utilize this oxygen. Now, in the third step, that is internal respiration, this blood, which is oxygenated blood, should move to each and every tissue so that each and every tissue will get the share of its oxygen. Okay, and in the last step, that is cellular respiration, each and every cell or tissue will utilize this oxygen so that ATP can be formed. So today we have to see what is internal respiration, how this oxygen will reach each and every tissue, and how the carbon dioxide will move out of the tissue. First we will see the fate of oxygen. Transport of oxygen. See, our blood, now the oxygen is present in our blood, and that blood is having two parts. Blood is having how many parts? Two parts. What are the two parts of the blood? First part of the blood is liquid part, and second part of the blood is cellular part. Liquid part of the blood is called as plasma, and cellular part is having many things. But here when we talk about transport of oxygen, who is involved? It is RBC. Cellular part is having RBC, WBC and platelets. Out of these three, RBC play important role in transport of oxygen from the lungs to the tissue. Okay, so in these two parts of the blood, oxygen, around 3% of oxygen will be taken up by plasma. So plasma is mainly made up of water. That water will take up the oxygen, okay, and 3% of oxygen will be formed in the, it will be captured by the plasma. Rest 97% of oxygen, whatever we have inhaled and is present in our alveoli, will be captured by hemoglobin. When hemoglobin attaches with the oxygen, it forms oxyhemoglobin. Okay, let's see the structure of hemoglobin. Hemoglobin is made up of two things. First thing is heme, second thing is globin. What is heme? Heme is nothing but ferrous or iron containing compound, and globin is your protein chain. Each hemoglobin is having 4 iron containing compounds attached with the 4 globin chain. Okay, so these are 4 ferrous containing compound with 4 globin chains. So each hemoglobin, I am talking about one hemoglobin. So such many hemoglobins are present in our bloodstream. One hemoglobin is having 4 sites, and at every site one ferrous is present. Okay, so each ferrous is having ability to combine with one oxygen. So 4 oxygen can attach to 1 hemoglobin. Okay, so what happens in the lungs? Association of oxygen with hemoglobin takes place. It depends on, especially on the partial pressure of oxygen. Okay, so higher the concentration of oxygen, higher will be the saturation of hemoglobin with the oxygen. So hemoglobin, when combined with oxygen, it forms oxyhemoglobin inside the lungs. Okay, but when this oxyhemoglobin reaches the tissue, what happens? Oxygen dissociation. Association and dissociation are opposite of each other. In the lungs, what is going on? Hemoglobin is attaches with the oxygen so that you can get oxyhemoglobin. Whereas when this oxyhemoglobin reaches the tissue, dissociation of oxyhemoglobin takes place and hemoglobin detaches with the oxygen to release this oxygen in the tissue. So inside the lungs, oxygen is taken up and inside the tissue, oxygen is released. Oxygen association and oxygen dissociation. It is this oxygen association and dissociation can be explained using a graph known as oxygen association dissociation curve. Okay, but keep in mind one thing, that degree of this saturation, okay, how much hemoglobin is taking the oxygen, how much oxygen is taken up by the hemoglobin depends on oxygen itself. If the concentration of oxygen is higher, or we can say partial pressure of oxygen is higher, there will be more saturation of hemoglobin. When the partial pressure of oxygen is low, there will be less saturation of the hemoglobin. Okay, so inside the lung, when we inhale air, freshly inhaled air, when we have that freshly inhaled air is having higher level of oxygen. Suppose if one hemoglobin in the lungs, if one hemoglobin attaches with one oxygen, we can say that hemoglobin molecule, because it is having 4 valency, 4 places are empty for oxygen and it is taking only 1. So we can say it is 25% saturated hemoglobin. If hemoglobin attaches with 2 oxygen molecules, we can say this hemoglobin molecule is 50% saturated. If hemoglobin attaches with 3 oxygen molecule, we can say this hemoglobin molecule is 75% saturated. If hemoglobin attaches with all the 4 oxygen molecules, we can say this hemoglobin is 100% saturated. So saturation, this 25%, 50%, 75%, 100%. This saturation depends totally on partial pressure of oxygen. Higher the partial pressure of oxygen, higher will be the association between hemoglobin and oxygen. Okay, so as soon as the oxygen is, the partial pressure of oxygen decreases, this association, the affinity of hemoglobin and oxygen also decreases. Okay, so formula is, the simple formula is, more the partial pressure of oxygen, higher will be the saturation of hemoglobin in the alveoli. Okay, one more thing I want to clear here, what is partial pressure? Partial pressure is nothing but the pressure of individual gas in the mixture of gases. So when you inhale air, it is a mixture of gases. So in that mixture of gases, one gas is having one pressure. That pressure of the gas in that mixture is called as partial pressure. तो जितना high होगा partial pressure oxygen का, उतना ज़्यादा जो है you will get hemoglobin, your hemoglobin will get saturated.